As I prepared to head back to my hometown to give birth, I couldn't believe my ears when I asked, and my mother-in-law with a smirk snapped, "Why don't you just stay there forever? I don't want to see your freeloading face again." Her harsh words hurt, but I managed to keep my cool and responded calmly, "All right, take care then. My name is Michelle, a 32-year-old professional. I've been in a relationship with Kevin for 3 years, which began at a party over our mutual love for music. After swapping numbers, we started spending our evenings chatting about everything from our favorite songs to workplace dilemmas, usually over drinks at the local bar. Time spent with Kevin was always delightful, and it seemed to fly by. Before long, we became a couple, and I've never felt more content in life. Despite our demanding jobs, we treasure our weekends together. The thought of seeing Kevin at the end of the week pushes me to work harder and be more productive. Our relationship has been a significant boost to my career, providing both support and motivation. After a year together, we took a significant step and moved in together, both of us serious about our future and considering marriage. Living together brought us closer, helping us understand each other's habits and idiosyncrasies. Now, a year into our cohabitation, my desire to marry him is stronger than ever, and I eagerly await his proposal, though I sense he wants to choose the perfect moment. Then, out of the blue, Kevin invited me to dinner at an upscale restaurant. It wasn't a special occasion, yet I couldn't shake the feeling that this could be the moment. After work, I arrived at the restaurant feeling a mix of nerves and excitement. When I saw him, I noticed he seemed even more anxious than me. Despite his palpable anxiety, seeing Kevin so nervous strangely calmed my nerves. His intense but awkward greeting even drew a quiet chuckle from me. As we progressed through our meal, Kevin's nervousness was evident, and as we finished our main course, he softly called my name, Michelle. His direct, earnest gaze made me a bit apprehensive. "Michelle, you're the most wonderful person, and I want to cherish you forever. I hope you feel the same about me. So, will you marry me?" His heartfelt words accompanied the presentation of a ring. My response was instinctive and joyful. "Yes, I can't wait to start our life together." With our engagement confirmed, I was overwhelmed with happiness. However, the bliss soon gave way to the busyness of life. We had to meet each other's families, organize family gatherings, and start planning our wedding. Juggling all this with our demanding jobs was a challenge, but Kevin and I managed to carve out time to move forward with our plans. When I introduced Kevin to my parents, they immediately liked him, impressed by his sincerity and warmth. Their approval meant the world to me, and I was grateful they embraced our decision to marry. However, the visit to Kevin's parents took an unexpected turn. Upon meeting me, Kevin's mother bluntly remarked, "Kevin's fiancé, you seem rather plain." I was taken aback by her harsh words. Before I could respond, Kevin quickly jumped in. "Mom, what are you saying? She's the woman I've chosen." His tone was defensive. "I'm just being honest," his mother retorted. Kevin's father then intervened, trying to ease the tension. "Enough, Susan. That's uncalled for." Despite Kevin and his father's efforts to defend me, I couldn't easily shake off the hurt caused by his mother's words. Later, Kevin apologized. "Michelle, I'm sorry about my mom. She's always been straightforward, sometimes too much so. I've never been quite comfortable with it either," Kevin admitted, surprising me with his candor. "So please don't let her words affect you. If she says anything out of line after we're married, just tell me immediately. I'll take care of it," he promised with sincerity. His reassurance eased my worries significantly. From the start of our relationship, Kevin had shown a protective streak, even during our initial introduction to his parents. However, my anxiety lingered, especially with the upcoming family gathering. I couldn't help but fear that Kevin's mother, Susan, might disrespect my parents as well. Despite my concerns, Kevin assured me he would manage the situation delicately. I had also prepped my parents about Susan's formidable personality, which they were somewhat prepared for from previous descriptions. The day of the family meeting finally came, and my nerves were fraught for a whole different set of reasons. "Hello, I'm Kevin's dad. It's a pleasure to meet you," greeted Jack warmly, extending a hand to my parents. "We're Michelle's mom and dad," my parents responded politely, maintaining a friendly atmosphere. They exchanged pleasantries with Jack, but Susan remained aloof, seating herself and ordering a drink without engaging. "I'll take her red wine. Looks like we'll need a bit of a drink to make this interesting," she remarked casually, her comment casting an uncomfortable pall over the gathering. My parents, stunned by Susan's blunt demeanor, were momentarily speechless. Both Jack and Kevin, clearly annoyed by Susan's behavior, quickly apologized for her rudeness. As the meal progressed, my parents and Jack hit it off, engaging in friendly conversation. Susan, focusing mainly on her meal, remained quiet initially. However, as she drank more, she began to interject rudely into the conversations. "A government job may be stable, but the pay isn't anything to brag about. Kevin's marrying into such boring people," she blurted, becoming increasingly disruptive as the evening wore on. "If they have kids, they'll probably be just as dull," Susan commented sharply, clearly crossing a line with her remarks. "That's enough," Jack interjected, his voice laden with anger. "You need to leave now." Susan left reluctantly, muttering about how she was just being honest. Jack escorted her outside and arranged for a cab to take her home. When he returned to the restaurant, he and Kevin apologized once more for Susan's behavior. I was thankful that we had reserved a private room. Susan had proven to be a greater challenge than we had anticipated. At our wedding, she was noticeably more reserved, likely due to Jack's stern warning that she must behave impeccably or face serious consequences. He had even hinted at divorce if she embarrassed them again. Thankfully, she held back her comments and the wedding proceeded flawlessly, much to my relief. Thus, Kevin and I embarked on our married life with earnest enthusiasm. We had a wonderful relationship filled with bliss as we shared household responsibilities evenly, ensuring neither of us felt overburdened. Kevin was an excellent cook, which was a delightful bonus. On days he was late from work but still took on the role of chef, we cooked together, making our time as a happy couple even more enjoyable. Kevin made it a point to visit his family home alone as much as possible, being mindful of both Susan's and my feelings. Thanks to this, I was spared any direct snide remarks or confrontations from Susan, and I deeply appreciated Kevin's thoughtful consideration during this time. However, tragedy struck when Jack suddenly fell ill and passed away. Kevin and I rushed to the hospital, but we arrived too late. "Dad!" Kevin exclaimed in disbelief, his voice breaking with grief. Jack's death hit him hard, and Susan was visibly distraught too, crying out, "How could you leave me like this?" Despite my strained relationship with Susan, I couldn't help but feel a profound sympathy for her loss. At that moment, I couldn't help but empathize with Susan's profound grief. We mourned the loss of Jack together, a man who had always shown me nothing but kindness. In the days that followed, Kevin and I found ourselves deeply involved in the funeral arrangements while navigating our sadness. Kevin took the lead in organizing the proceedings, and I did everything I could to support him during this challenging period. The funeral went smoothly, and it felt like we had given Jack a fitting send-off. Gradually, life began to return to its usual rhythm for Kevin and me. It took some time, but we eventually adjusted to life without Jack. Kevin seemed particularly determined to move forward with a renewed sense of purpose. However, just as we were finding our new normal, an unexpected challenge appeared. "Kevin, please, I need help," Susan said as she suddenly showed up at our doorstep, catching us off guard. "Mom, what's wrong?" Kevin asked, clearly disturbed by her uncharacteristic demeanor. Her voice softened as she replied, "Since your father passed, I've been feeling terribly lonely. Nothing seems to taste right anymore. I just wanted to see the faces of my only family, my son and his wife." Her words struck a chord. Her vulnerability was palpable. "Could I stay with you for a little while?" she asked, her voice tinged with desperation. Kevin and I were taken aback by her request. "I feel like I'll be crushed by loneliness if things continue this way," she pleaded. We hesitated but reasoned that a short stay might not be harmful. Susan seemed so fragile, and we doubted she had the energy to be hostile towards me. Thus, we agreed to let her stay, and surprisingly, Susan adapted well. She even began to help with household chores. "Staying in your home is the least I can do. Thank you, you're lifesavers," she expressed gratefully. Both Kevin and I appreciated her efforts, and life seemed manageable, almost pleasant. However, after about 5 months, Susan slowly began to revert to her old habits. "Michelle, aren't you planning to quit your job? Isn't it normal for wives to stop working?" she casually remarked one day, signaling a return to her previous ways. "You've been working all this time," I began, but Susan's tone quickly grew harsher, a clear sign she was reverting to her old self. Turning to Kevin, I said, "Okay, we need to talk to Mom and ask her to consider moving back to her hometown." When Kevin broached the subject with Susan, her response took us by surprise. "I've already sold the family home," she confessed. Kevin and I exchanged shocked glances. "Mom, why would you do that without discussing it with us?" "That's our family home. I inherited it from Dad," Kevin said, disbelief coloring his voice. "Selling it was my decision," Susan defended herself, but her casual dismissal stung. "You should have at least informed us," Kevin countered, his frustration evident. "I forgot. Sorry, now I have nowhere else to go, so please don't kick me out," Susan pleaded. Kevin and I were left speechless, struggling to digest this new reality. As we were trying to come to terms with the situation, another unexpected development occurred. I discovered I was pregnant. Kevin and I were overjoyed. We had been hoping for a child, but were almost ready to give up due to our age. This was truly wonderful news. However, the joy of our growing family was tempered by the prospect of dealing with Susan during the pregnancy. Her complaints had resumed. She argued with Kevin. "Why do I have to cook for you too? I'm only staying here because of Kevin, not you. Traditionally, it's the wife who handles all the housework." Kevin explained that while Susan would cook only for herself and him and do her laundry, she stubbornly avoided any chores related to me. Despite Kevin's reprimands, she showed remorse only temporarily before slipping back into old habits. At my wit's end and feeling the need for a break, I decided to start my maternity leave early and return to my parents' home for some peace. When I discussed this with Kevin, he suggested a solution we both eventually agreed upon. As we made our plans, I informed Susan about our decision and began preparing for the move. "You're going back home to give birth?" she asked, a sharp edge to her voice. "Yes, I believe it's the best decision for safer childbirth, and it also means I'll be leaving household duties behind for a while." "Kevin supports this decision," I explained. Upon hearing this, Susan smirked disdainfully. "Why not just stay at your parents' house forever? I don't want to see your parasitic face around here anyway. I bet even Kevin's had enough of you." "You don't need to come back to this house anymore," she sneered. Her harsh words surprisingly brought me a sense of relief. "All right then, take care," I replied calmly and returned to my parents' house. They welcomed me with open arms, providing the peace and comfort I needed during this time. A month later, Kevin came to my parents' house with exciting news. "I finally got the green light from work to transition to remote work permanently, and I found us a new place to live," he announced. "That's fantastic," I exclaimed. Thoughtfully, Kevin had rented an apartment close to my parents' home, making it easier for us to start our new life there. He then terminated the lease on the room Susan had been staying in and finalized our move to the new apartment. Susan was clearly unsettled by these developments and called me in a panic. "Hey, Michelle, where are you?" "I'm at our new place with Kevin," I responded. "New place? Where?" Susan's voice sounded urgent and somewhat panicked. "I'll let you know in time, but I have to be honest, the lease here is being canceled and everything's being moved out. I can't stay here anymore," I explained calmly, emphasizing the fresh start Kevin and I were making. "Kevin said he's cutting ties with me? He doesn't want to talk to me anymore?" she asked, her voice cracking. Yes, we're starting fresh somewhere else, I added, trying to make her understand the finality of our decision. So, you were just pretending to be nice to stay here, huh? This was your plan all along? Susan accused me of misunderstanding my intentions. Susan accused sharply, because you couldn't make any money from selling the house you got from Jack, right? How did you find out? I asked, surprised by her knowledge. You were telling the neighbors how frustrated you were that the house your husband left had no value, then suddenly it was up for sale. People just can't keep quiet about things like that. Give me Kevin back. I'm that kid's parent, so I have the right to live with him. As I've said before, he doesn't want to see you, and I won't pressure him into something he's uncomfortable with, I responded calmly. Upon hearing this, Susan's temper flared. Who do you think you are, acting all high and mighty when you're just a broke, freeloading, plain wife? That's not a nice thing to say, but it's true, she snapped. Well, I don't think our paths will cross much in the future, so it doesn't concern me, I replied calmly. But let me clarify something. Alongside my full-time job, I also have a side gig, and I actually earn more than Kevin, I continued. Oh, really? What's this side gig? Susan asked skeptically. I initially studied web design, so I've been taking on projects in that field. With both my full-time salary and freelance work, I'm bringing in about $10,000 a month, I explained. What? That much? That's more than Jack used to make. Susan was taken aback by my financial situation, clearly not expecting that the wife she had underestimated was earning that much. But none of this concerns you. Kevin has cut ties with you, and I'll be distancing myself even further, I asserted firmly. Wait a minute, if you're making that kind of money, maybe you could lend me a hand, Susan suggested hopefully. I didn't hesitate. I ended the call and blocked her number. It was a relief to expose Susan's true intentions and leave her feeling regretful. Knowing I wouldn't have to deal with her again brought me a sense of peace. Susan was now completely out of the loop about our lives. She didn't know where my parents lived or where I worked. With Kevin working from home and our new address kept private, the chances of her finding us were incredibly slim. We learned through the grapevine that Susan had always had a problem with overspending, and any inheritance left by Jack had quickly dwindled to nearly nothing. She had tried to sell the house but only received low offers, which further compounded her financial difficulties. Despite these setbacks, her old habits persisted. A neighbor from our old neighborhood contacted Kevin, sharing that Susan's spending habits hadn't changed. She relied heavily on payday loans, which had plunged her deeper into debt. She had even resorted to asking neighbors for loans, though without any success, which only worsened her financial woes. It seemed like karma was finally catching up with her. Meanwhile, Kevin and I were living a peaceful life, blissfully free from any disruptions from Susan. We split our time between our own home and my parents' place as we prepared for the arrival of our child. With the baby on the way, we were excited about the future and looked forward to nurturing our family and cherishing every moment together. This newfound peace was something we treasured deeply, knowing the chaos that had once surrounded us.
What are you doing here? I didn't invite you, sneered my sister-in-law, Sophia, her eyes glinting with cold disdain. My heart clenched. What do you mean you didn't invite us? We're family. Aren't we supposed to be here? I asked, my voice trembling with confusion and hurt. Sophia's smile twisted into a cruel smirk. Having a poor and worthless family like yours at our wedding is a disgrace. My temples throbbed, and bitterness filled my mouth. I'm sorry, but I don't recognize you as family. Get the hell out of here, she snarled, loud enough for the other guests to turn and stare. In that moment, humiliation boiled into rage. One question pulsed in my mind. Had we made a mistake by coming here at all? My name is Molly, a 35-year-old housewife. I currently live with my husband Albert and our 11-year-old daughter, Madeline. We got married 12 years ago. Albert and I were classmates in college, and from the beginning of our relationship, Albert told me, I will marry only you. I can't imagine marrying anyone but you, Molly. You're the one for me. He was the kind of person who would say things like that. At the time, I thought he was crazy to say such a thing, even though we had not yet gotten to know each other very well. But Albert always took good care of me. For example, he made me porridge when I had a cold, did the shopping and laundry for me, and so on. He did a lot for me. I found myself thinking that it's obvious I should be with Albert. Somewhere in my heart, I also began to feel that I would marry him and have a peaceful life. We started dating in the first year of college and had a good time without any big fights. But in the fourth year of college, I think I hit a wall for the first time. I was able to find a job relatively quickly, but Albert was having trouble because he could not get a job offer from the company he wanted. At the time, we were talking about getting married when I graduated from college at the age of 22, but things were not going smoothly. I have a brother, Gavin, who is 2 years older than me, and he was studying hard in medical school, dreaming of becoming a doctor. We were close and frequently contacted each other, and my brother was supportive of my relationship with Albert. "Molly, how are you doing? Is Albert trying to find a job?" Gavin asked one day. "It's not easy in this day and age, is it?" "I guess so. He hasn't been able to find a job. Albert is wondering what he should do now," I admitted. Whenever I talked about this, my brother always took time out of his busy schedule to visit me as a surprise, hoping to cheer me up. My brother and Albert are like real brothers who can talk about anything, and it makes me proud to see them. Albert does not have a close relationship with his family. His parents divorced when he was very young, and he joined his mother's side of the family. He once told me, "My mother was a stay-at-home drunkard who never worked a day in her life. He went to college on a scholarship and had a part-time job after classes were over, so I think he was living on the edge." The past is the past. I believe that if you work hard, good things will happen to you, Albert used to say. My husband did not get a job offer from his first choice company, but he got a job in sales at a small company, and we moved in together as soon as we both entered the workforce. "It's a great place to live, huh?" Albert asked, his eyes searching mine for reassurance. "It's an old apartment, but I'm sure we will have a good time living together." We were still short of money, so we rented a cheap apartment. After a year of living together, Albert proposed to me, and we got married. My brother, of course, was very happy about our marriage. "Albert, please take good care of Molly from now on. Molly is a bit stubborn, and it may be hard, but I will be there for you if there are any problems," Gavin said. "Gavin, thank you very much. I will spend the rest of my life making Molly happy. You can rest assured," my husband replied sincerely. "He has put me first in his life, even after our marriage," as he declared. Albert's mother, my mother-in-law, was not happy about him getting married. When I went to greet her, she said, "You're only 23. Isn't it too early to get married? Shouldn't you have more fun with other people? Anyway, do what you want, but don't expect me to be at the wedding." I remember that she was the opposite of Albert, who was kind and considerate. This was the first time I understood why Albert never came to his parents' house. My mother-in-law was not at all interested in the wedding, as she had declared, and insisted that she would never attend. Soon after, I became pregnant, and the ceremony had to be postponed. This was the first time I learned that there are parents who are not interested in their children getting married. My mother-in-law was not interested in her son's marriage, nor did she even come to see her grandson's face when he was born. Of course, she did not congratulate me, nor did she offer any words of congratulations. I think it was only my parents and my brother who were happy to see me whenever there was an event. Getting married is nice. Having a family is nice, I thought. I always hoped my brother, who was already busy with his work as a doctor, would get married soon. But after 12 years, I realized I was holding on to nothing but wishful thinking. Now I'm 35, and he's 37. He was busy with his daily life. He could only meet people at the hospital, but I still wanted him to live a peaceful life. It was at that time my brother called me to say that he had something to tell me, and was coming to visit us for the first time in a long time. My daughter Madeline was overjoyed. "Uncle Gavin's coming to visit us today, right? Is he going to stay the night? I hope he has a good time," she said excitedly. My brother showed up after work and said with a bright expression on his face, "Actually, I have big news for you today. Don't be too surprised and just listen, okay?" "What is it?" I asked eagerly. He smiled, hesitant to say it. "Could it be you found someone to marry?" I added. That's right, he confirmed. Actually, I've got a girlfriend. We're finally getting married. Well, we've only been together a short time, but she's good to me. She's okay with my busy schedule. Her name is Sophia. She's still young, but she's a hard worker. She's 25 years old, 12 years younger than my brother. She's a nurse who met my brother at a hospital and told him that she had always dreamed of becoming a housewife and that she wanted to quit her job to support her family, even though she had obtained her certification. Both Albert and my daughter were happy for my brother, but I had a strange feeling. Her age and the fact that she had been in a relationship for so short a time made me think that it was too quick for them to get married. Moreover, I felt uneasy because of her dream of becoming a housewife, but my brother seemed happy to talk about it. I had always seen you, Albert, and Madeline so happy. I've always been jealous of you guys. Sophia's in a hurry to get the registration done before the wedding. I just can't wrap my head around it, Gavin said. He was too conflicted to say anything else. I thought to myself, I think it's better to register after the wedding. I didn't want to say anything negative, so I just asked him to listen. I decided to tell him what I was thinking, but he didn't seem to understand. Yes, you are right. I will do it. Thank you. That's all that he said. Less than a month later, my brother's wedding preparations went smoothly. Despite my brother's exuberance, I had a bad feeling about this. Albert said to me, "Hey, Molly, what's up? Isn't something wrong? Gavin getting married is not a bad thing, right? We should congratulate him." I couldn't keep my mouth shut because of my intuition. I have a bad feeling, I confessed. But not long after that, when my brother came to my house with his fiancée, Albert understood what I was talking about. "Hey, my name is Sophia. Thank you for supporting our marriage. So you're the sister that he has been telling me about. I thought you'd be a more sophisticated woman because you're a doctor's sister, but you're pretty homely." "Oh well, I won't have to talk to you much once we're married," Sophia said, with a smug smile. "What?" I thought, stunned by her rude attitude. I didn't even want to say anything back to her. I looked at my husband and saw that Albert had a blank expression on his face too. My brother, who was in high spirits, didn't even notice this strange situation and was just listening to Sophia talk. This woman is done for. I mean, Gavin, you should definitely not marry this woman. If you marry her, it's the end of everything, I thought. But my brother didn't know that we were worried about him. If I get married, I'll be able to live happily every day like you and Albert, won't I? Anyway, we are going to have a big wedding to show our gratitude to everyone, so please look forward to it, Gavin said cheerfully. He was talking with a nonchalant look on his faces. As for Sophia, she looked at us as if we were idiots and finally sneered at us. If I could have gone back in time, I would have tried to convince my brother not to marry this woman. We couldn't help but notice my brother's exultant move. Even my daughter, who is still in elementary school, was sensitive. "Is Uncle Gavin sure about this? That woman seems so mean," Madeline asked, her small voice full of concern. However, there was nothing we could do about it. And before we knew it, it was the day of the wedding. Although I was worried, I had not heard from my brother since that day, and I thought nothing unusual had happened on the day of the wedding. My daughter was looking forward to the wedding. "It's Uncle Gavin's wedding today. I'm so excited. He said he's having a big wedding. I wonder how it's going to be. I've never been to a wedding in my life, so I'm looking forward to it," she said with wide eyes and a big smile. Madeline was so excited, although we didn't have a good opinion of Sophia. We felt that the wedding was a big deal. Even though my husband and I were against the marriage, we decided to congratulate my brother anyway. We dressed up in our formal attire and headed to the wedding venue, looking forward to seeing my brother happy. But as soon as we arrived, we ran into Sophia. We smiled at her, but she suddenly pointed at us and laughed. "What are you guys doing here? I didn't invite you. I told Gavin not to invite you," she added with a sneer. "What do you mean? You didn't invite us? We are family. So aren't we supposed to be here?" I asked, confused and hurt. It's crazy to say such a terrible thing on such a happy day. That's what we thought. But Sophia still had more to say. She looked at us as if we were trash and said something outrageous again. "It's bad for our reputation to have a poor and bottom-feeding family like yours at our wedding. I'm sorry, but I don't recognize you as family. Get the hell out of here," she continued, her tone dripping with disdain. What? I exclaimed. My relatives began gathering around us as an uproar started. She looked at us with scornful eyes, taking advantage of our troubled faces, and laughed at us as if telling us to hurry up and go home. What a terrible thing to say. I was getting more and more mad, and wondered if we should have even attended the ceremony. I had spent a fortune on the wedding gift, prepared something special for her, and was genuinely looking forward to today. My daughter already looked like she was going to cry. Albert was already red with anger. Enough. Let's go home, I thought. I don't have to participate after being ridiculed harshly like this. Then let's go home. I thought she was an insane woman, but I never thought she would say such a terrible thing. My father said that while holding back his laughter. My brother and sister-in-law just looked at each other, not understanding why my father was laughing. Gavin looked pale, but to be honest, we didn't care anymore. I agree, let's go home. No need to pay a lot of money for someone like this, my husband said. Then Sophia snapped, What? What are you talking about? I was just expressing my honest opinion. What's wrong with saying you're a poor family? And it's true that it's going to ruin our reputation. What is wrong with you? I asked, my voice shaking with anger. She looked like she was about to cry. My father immediately started to get ready to go home, and my mother said with a look of disgust on her face, Sophia, you're saying that my daughter's family is poor and are bottom feeders? Don't judge people by their looks. But Molly, your husband is a businessman working for a small company, right? Of course he's poor compared to a doctor. I never said anything wrong. Sophia stammered defensively. Albert worked as an office worker for the entire decade. But lately, things have changed drastically. Of course my brother knows this, and he looks at her because she is not sure what she is talking about. Just because someone is poor, you shouldn't call them bottom feeders. It is true that he worked for a small company right out of college, but now he's the president of a company with over 100 employees. A doctor's income may be very high, but now my husband definitely makes more money, and he can take his vacations more freely. The man she had ridiculed as being a bottom feeder was now earning more than the man who would become her husband. Sophia could not hide her surprise and shock. But I was going to marry a doctor because of his good income, Sophia protested. I can't stand the idea of having someone around me who makes more money than a doctor. Sophia's comment created a tense atmosphere. Then, 4 minutes later, my brother spoke up, his voice firm. I'm not going to marry you after all. I never thought you'd make fun of my family like this. Besides, getting married for the paycheck is never going to work out. My brother, who had been looking forward to getting married so much, announced in front of everyone that he was breaking off the marriage. Everyone was astonished. My father was trying not to laugh all the time. Yes, I think it's a good idea, Gavin, he said. You made a good decision. It's not a good idea to marry someone who doesn't respect her in-laws in the first place. Besides, she's a money-grabbing woman. It would destroy the family for sure, he concluded. Sophia's face paled when she was told the wedding was cancelled. Wait a minute, she cried. It's crazy that everyone is rallying against me and making me look bad. Today is my wedding and Gavin's. I'm supposed to marry Gavin. Please don't say such strange things to me. She was saying this with tears in her eyes, but everyone was looking at her coldly. It's up to you and my brother to decide whether or not to get married, I said. But I'm not going to have anything to do with you if you keep calling me a bottom feeder. Me neither, Albert added. I'm not going to have anything to do with you if you make fun of our family. We'll leave you now, Albert and I said to Sophia, who was crying. I've been made fun of a lot in my life, so it felt nice to say something like that. We left the wedding hall, and shortly afterwards, my parents and brother had a meeting with Sophia's family and decided to cancel the marriage. Sophia broke down in tears at the sudden cancellation of the marriage and kept insisting that she would definitely get married. There's no way he'd cancel the wedding so soon, Sophia sobbed. I'm going to marry a doctor and live a life of luxury. The more Sophia talked, the more awkward the atmosphere became. In the end, it seemed that Sophia's brother was the only sane one in the family. You know, you shouldn't do this, he told her. It's so embarrassing. It's your fault, isn't it? I can forgive you for trying to marry a doctor for his fortune. Her brother tried to convince her. He then suggested, the person who caused the trouble should pay the cancellation fee of the wedding. I heard that Sophia's side paid all the fees, perhaps because they didn't want to make things worse. I guess my brother might have been shocked that he could not marry her. But as for me, I'm glad that he could see her true nature before marrying her, instead of marrying her and having her be in control of everything. As for Sophia, all I can say is, take that. After that, my brother came to our house to apologize to us. We thought he would be depressed, but no. Actually, I'm glad, he said with a relieved smile. I almost became a divorcee, you know. You told me that we should get registered after the wedding, and I'm glad we didn't do it before. Thank you, he said to me. I'm so relieved to hear that you're doing better than I thought, I replied. My daughter cried too. Uncle Gavin, she said softly, I hope you find someone kind this time. You're a cool guy and have a very kind personality, so I'm sure you will find someone nice soon. She made a smile. Anyway, my brother seems to be in good health, and we were relieved that we didn't have to pay any unnecessary money. After that, my husband and I were laughing. We said we need to keep an eye on my brother from time to make sure he doesn't get caught by some strange woman. But we hope that one day, he will meet someone with whom he will feel at ease.